Welcome to this third episode of Warrior Week, the podcast, Parables from the Past. With me, my guest today is Nick Long. Nick, what's going on, brother?
What up, Sam? Thanks for having me, my friend.
So, brothers, today we're going to have a conversation about the lifestyle of an entrepreneur, the married lifestyle of an entrepreneur, and where life can lead you. As we talk about that, I'm going to tell you some stories inside of what applicants I've spoken to today. I had a couple of interviews today for Warrior Week, man, and I have some interesting stories to tell about them. In fact, I had like 5 guys. Out of 5 guys, we signed in 1 guy. So often people ask us, like, hey, man, how many interviews a week you run? I would say somewhere between 15 to 20 interviews, right? And inside of that, there is over 300 applications coming in every week, and as well as 70 to 80 correspondence that takes place. So once a man comes into the interview, he's pretty much like inside of a conversation that will lead him somewhere. And sometimes it leads him to Warrior Week, like Nick. We're going to talk about your interview, how quickly that led you to Warrior Week. And sometimes it's going to lead a man to a place where he can at least ask some questions. I'll be the judge of that because sometimes I know that a man is not going to come to Warrior Week, but I'll spend an hour with him anyway so that he can see something in himself. And that by itself is a story that I'm going to tell with the guys that I interviewed today, along with Nick, and how Nick got into his journey. So, Nick, we're going to run to you, and we're gonna ask you a question, man. Like, dude, you came across Warrior 2 years ago?
About 2.5 years ago, yeah.
2.5 years ago, right? And you're a local from here, born and raised here, right?
Yeah, born and raised Southern California, currently reside in Newport Beach.
Beautiful. So inside of that, talk to me about, how you came across and how quickly you were on board to come in and experience something that dramatically has changed your life and your family's life, bro.
Yeah, so it was right before my 36th birthday, and my wife kept asking me what I want. She was pregnant with our second child, which is a boy, and we already had our daughter, and our daughter was almost approaching a year. And I was kind of flailing around, like trying to find a group that I could find some relevance with. I tried all the entrepreneur networking groups. I tried creating a small mastermind. I tried to do all these things, and I wasn't finding like fruit. And so funny story of mine, a ex-business partner of mine had gone to like this retreat, and it was like out in the forest, and he was telling me about this, and they fucking got naked and was like trying to find your primal state. But it was some weird shit that happened there. I guess you couldn't like speak unless you were holding this wooden dildo. And I was telling this story to my ops manager, who happens to be a woman. She's like, "What the hell are you talking about, wooden dildos?" And so I said, "No, it's a real story." So I call up my buddy Anthony in New York, and he's a true New Yorker, and he's like fucking just laughing his ass off about it. He goes, "Dude, like all jokes aside, you got to check out this shit called Wake Up Warrior." And I'm like, "What is that?" He's like, "Just go to the website, check it out. Like, dude, when I saw it, I thought of you. You're going to fucking love it." So lo and behold, here I go. I watched the first video, and literally 4.5 hours later of rabbit holes and videos, you and I are on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, our conversation was actually kind of brief because I think you could feel how much I was leaning into it and how much I had been searching for this. And like, it just took everything that I've been looking for and put it into like a singular focus. And then you dropped the price on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Oh shit." I said, "Okay, well, do me a favor, run my card for $1,000 right now."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "I want to go home. I'm going to have a conversation with my wife, and then I'll give you clearance to run the rest."
Mm-hmm.
And you said, you gave me some sort of timeline. I didn't know what it was, but I said, "All right." And I ran home, and I came home, and I looked at my wife, and I said, "Nicole, you've been asking me for a long time what I wanted for my birthday, and I want this." And I shouldered just like the very first intro. And she goes, "Okay." And I told her the price at that time. Am I okay to say the price?
Sure.
At that time, it was $15,000. You'd already taken $1,000, and she goes, "Okay," because she could feel my conviction. She could feel like I hadn't wanted anything else more outside of my marriage and her and being a father than this. And we did it. And I called you back up. I said, "Green light," and you said, "All right." And that's back in the day when you had to interview with Garrett after you passed the crucible with you.
So I remember that, man. And inside of that conversation, a couple of things happened. 15 grand for you at that time was not easy. Like, I mean, you run a successful company.
Yeah.
You put food on the table for over 150 people. I mean, you're doing your best, right? You're running multiple companies. But even at that time, 15 grand was not fucking easy.
No, 15 grand was a big decision for us. I mean, especially given that we were in the build phase of our business, you know. So it was like 15,000 invested into the business or 15,000 invested into me.
Yes.
You know, later I found out that 15,000 invested in me might have been, you know, 20x what it would have been in being in the business.
And that's something that when I was in the oil and gas industry, I would spend tons of money on travels. I remember I particularly spent like 15 to 20,000 to travel across the world, go to Russia, and then just do all these remote location. Not even for delivery of the project, but for the hope of building relationships and signing up. And so that wasn't a problem, but spending like $5,000 on myself would be a huge fucking problem. And it would be a dilemma taking place. And I learned about myself that I could take risk in business, but I would not take risk on myself. This is prior to Warrior.
Yeah.
So how would you relate to that, man?
No, you're 100% right. It's so counterintuitive when you think about it. Like, everybody wants to invest in their business and invest in the people in their business, but like, you're the tip of the fucking spear. And it's like asinine when I look back, right? Like Bill Gates is talking about how it's very easy to connect the dots looking back, and it's almost impossible to connect them looking forward, even though the same dots exist. But like, looking back, I'm like, I mean, now I would have paid any price for it, because it is like completely transformed my life and transformed me as a man, as a father, as a husband, as a leader, which have, you know, more than quadrupled my business since that time. So
learning to take some risks.
Yeah, but risk on yourself.
Risk on yourself.
I mean, we're all risk. If you're an entrepreneur or you're a male, there's that certain risk proneness inside of you.
Even when you go fucking buy a car.
Yeah, but you're like, we don't take the time to sit down and invest in ourselves.
No,
and we're the number one asset.
We'll fucking invest in cars, and we'll go change cars, and we'll have fucking negatives, and we'll like, okay, just fucking write it off as long as I don't see it. Add another 10 grand, and I'll pay it fucking monthly. Or 15, but we never take time to invest in ourselves.
The number one asset, yeah.
So risk was one. Then what were the facts of life? What were the facts?
The facts of life was I was comfortable. I was good.
Yes.
I was comfortable, but I was uncomfortably comfortable. I was uncomfortable with the man that I saw in the mirror. I knew that there was more, even though we were doing great things and we had built 2 successful and profitable businesses. I was probably 25, 30 pounds heavier than I am now. I was freaked out that I had a son on the way. I had a daughter already, and I loved fatherhood. I was real present as a father, but I had a son coming, and I was like, whoa, like, he's gonna learn how to be a man from me, and I'm not even certain, like, I like the man that I see. And I knew that I could be, as weird as it sounds, I knew I could be a good father for my daughter, because I just lean in with lots of love, you know, just love and affection and attention and affirmation. But I was like, you know, I got to teach this boy to be a man. And in my family, that I have 2 brothers, an older brother and younger brother, we're the only ones that can carry on like our last name. So this is like literally the legacy, right?
Yeah.
So this is my grandfather, my father, and everybody that came before him. And so it like punched me in the gut. And that's why when Warrior came in, it like reached inside my soul, and it shook it, and it grabbed a hold of it, and it was like, you're going.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't even a question. It's like, you were going. And I felt like Garrett and I were having a personal conversation, and I just knew that if I didn't do it at that point, like, something bad was going to happen.
Inside of this, you came to Warrior Week twice. So we're going to talk about Warrior Week 22. Was the first time that came in, and Warrior Week 40 is the one that you just came in recently, a couple of months ago. We're going to talk about the gap in between and the difference. But I want to tie it into a principle here, that the facts of life are facts, but facts are not necessarily the truth. Right. And I'm going to explain to you what that is. The fact that this took place, or the fact that you were living the facts of your life, doesn't necessarily equals to the truth. And what I mean by that is the truth is the interpretation of how you actually take the facts and you feel around it. The truth becomes your interpretation of the facts. And inside of that, you came to Worry Week 22 based on facts. And we're going to talk about some facts that were not fucking pretty. But Worry Week 40, you were seeking the truth. So talk to me about Worry Week 22, and then let's transition to 40.
Yeah, so 22, like I just knew I knew that something was missing. I just felt inadequacy. I felt just a lot of unworthiness, and I kind of went for two reasons. At that time I want to get my body back in shape. I was a collegiate athlete and a wrestler in high school, and I'd let my body go. I mean, not crazy, but like just not where I wanted to be. And then I wanted to make more money, and I thought those two things would happen. And they did. But surprisingly, the most radical changes happened inside of, my marriage. My wife and I have been together 11 years. We've been married for 4, but there were some gaps before we got married, and I fucked up. And I didn't realize how much I was holding on to, the shame and the guilt and the things that I had to come to reckoning with. And 22 was a great experience. Yep. It was fucking awesome. I mean, I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for 22. And I finally found relationships with men that like had no fucking ulterior motives, no walls, no bullshit facades, no, putting your car keys out on the table to see who has the best car. Like the truth and vulnerability was what made you elite, like in that group. And those men. I was the best man in one of their weddings. I was just out in Vegas with another one. I mean, we're still a tight fucking unit of men because we bonded over like truth. We bonded over wanting to better ourselves.
It's true. And so inside of this whole experience, you came to 22 and you faced the facts.
Yeah.
And here's what 22 did for you. Like, you leaped with 22, meaning that you got into it, and 22, like, you leaped with 22 into life. That's what it did for you. You leaped. And so I want to tell you a story about the interview that I had this morning. So I get a text, and there's a guy that wants to come to Warrior Week, and so I exchanged some texts with him, and inside of that, he tells me he's all in. So he comes on a call, and we have a conversation, and initially I tell him how we're going to spend the next hour and what's going to happen at the end if he's accepted. And so he agrees to that. And so we go on, and he shares his pain, right? 34-year-old guy, father of 5.
Holy shit.
3 girls and twins, okay? Boys.
Oh, man.
Now, he goes ahead and he describes his current life, but from the beginning of the conversation, I could hear that there is no celebration tone in none of his achievement. And here's what he's achieved, right? At 29, he sells his business. And he profits $750,000. 29. $750,000 cash in your bank account. Then God gives him identical twins, boys.
After 3 girls?
Dude, fucking identical.
Wow.
Then he pays off his house, and then he tells me life wasn't fucking working. I wasn't happy. So I tell him, what the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? And so as we go deeper and deeper, we found out that inside of his marriage for 12 years, they come from a religious background. I'm not going to say which religion because I don't want to fucking, it's not about the religion itself, but they come from a religious background, a very structured background. And the religion and the faith kind of decides who's leading this family. That gets transcended to the wife, and the wife kind of runs the family. And he goes along 12 years unhappy.
Out of power.
And what happens, he starts cheating on his wife. He starts having an affair that lasts a year. Then guilt and shame builds up. Builds up to a point where he calls it off. And then he tells his wife that this happened. And look what happens here. She kind of like puts him in therapy, or she puts conditions on him that I got to know where you are all the time. And here's like, follow this therapy and so on. She doesn't give up the life that she has. All the way to another year later where he started corresponding again and again. He started getting back with the same woman.
Wow.
And inside of that, he got caught for the second time. This time he got caught. And inside of that conversation, the wife is still operating with the same pattern. So when you look at this, it's like, and this is what I told him. This is the story, is that, hey, man, your wife is more in love with her life and her status in this community than you. And that's 100% on fucking you.
She's more in love with that than she's in pain.
In pain.
Right.
And that is 100% on you, because you're the one that fucking trained her to be this way. You're the one that tolerated this behavior. You're the one that allowed this to overcome your kingdom for the past fucking 12 years. So don't come here fucking knocking at the door and crying on my shoulder. What the fuck do you want? What do you want? Right? So we, in this exchange of conversations, he's not sure what he wants, man. Right? He's not sure. He's not sure, because the question is simple. Do you want to go back living the next 30 years the same way you were living in the past 12 years? Or do you want to fucking build a life with your wife and your family for the next 30 years? And if you want to build a fucking life, motherfucker, you better go to fucking war. Because shit needs to change. The way you were operating and the way this family was operating, like, you need to take the leadership.
Like, going to therapy at that point is like putting a bullet or a Band-Aid on a bullet hole.
It's just a checklist. It's just a checklist.
Yeah.
It fucks everyone up because it's just a fucking checklist. And ultimately, inside of that he's risking like everything, right? So it's very clear what he needs to do. There's a massive pattern interruption that needs to happen in his life. And guess what happens at the end of the call?
He doesn't sign up.
He doesn't sign up. And he kind of lied because he said that he understands the condition.
Right.
So obviously, what do?
Call him out.
Call him out. Like, fuck you for lying to me, bro.
Right.
Not because...
Well, that's the pattern showing up.
That's the pattern showing up.
Again.
And it's not like, hey, man, I wasted my fucking time an hour. I appreciated the conversation.
Right.
There was a lot of exchanges of the truth and healing. But the facts were that he did not want to leap. And it's not his fault, man. Is his courage has been fucking dimmed over the years. And he was running back to a life that is rejecting him. And the problem, he doesn't want it, but he's running after it.
Well, I think he much like his wife, he's conditioned to be in love with that cycle, you know, and that's comfortable for him, right?
It's true.
As painful as it is, it's so fucking weird. Like, we'll all just live in this cocoon of pain.
Yeah.
Because it's familiar.
Yeah.
You know, it's familiar. We don't have to get outside of that. But the moment we're asked to actually take a fucking leap and do something, invest in ourselves,
yeah,
like, we just clam up. And it's the weirdest thing. Men of power, men of money. I mean, obviously this guy wasn't a turd. He's built businesses, and amongst having all these children and all this kind of stuff, was able to seduce other women than his wife. But he can't seduce himself out of his own fucking story and take a leap of faith and do something that could radically shift generations of his family.
So he's sorry. So he's exactly where you were on the first day of Warrior Week, the first fucking night. Like, what he described to me was his fucking pit.
Right.
And that's when I say this is the parables from the pit, it's the pit of the guys knocking at the door, and it's the pit of the guys inside of this game.
Yeah.
2.5 years. You find yourself only a few months ago. You've been in this game for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Major fucking changes in your life.
Radical.
And you come, and I want to take you, like, take a deep breath, bro, because I want to take you back on that night when you discovered and you were put inside of your pit. Talk to us about what you see. And this is a place where you can actually get fucking raw.
Yeah. No, if anybody knows me inside the Warrior Network, I'm a pretty vulnerable guy. It's crazy because I haven't really shared this much outside of the Warrior Brotherhood. But I do care deeply about impacting other men, and I do care deeply about this movement and this belief system. So, you know, when after Warrior Week 22, and we were given the opportunity to step through to the Kingdom Challenge, I went and sat down with Garrett, and it wasn't even a choice of whether or not I was going to continue on. Like I just knew, like it was what I needed. And I sat down with Garrett and I looked him in the eye. I'm like, bro, I have to do this. It's not even a question, because I cannot go back to where I've been. And I'm not talking like where I was, where I've been.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I've got so much to fucking lose now with my wife and my children and my businesses, and I can't be the man that lost her one time before. And he's like, well, this is a way. This is the way to keep you accountable. And I was like, I know. So, I'm tears are pouring down my face, and Garrett is welling up, because I know that he has been there. He's felt the same pain that I'm feeling at that moment. So fast forward, was in the game for I don't know, 2 years. And I just started drifting. I started drifting away from the lifestyle. I started drifting away from the belief system. And not necessarily that I didn't believe it. I just started falling out of practice. And I started, kind of ostracizing myself from the brothers that love me. And I don't even know why. It's kind of a blur, to be honest with you. And I had this reoccurring theme in my life of unworthiness, even though, like, I know it's not true, but it's just been a pattern that's shown up. And so I think I started to feel unworthy. And so when I feel unworthy, I start to secretly sabotage, and subconsciously or consciously. And so my pit was fucking bad. It was real bad. I went back to that place that I told Garrett, like, I didn't want to go, man. And it didn't happen overnight. It was like death by, 1,000 paper cuts, or 1,000 broken commitments to myself. A commitment that I said I was going to do the core for, a commitment that I said I was going to do this, a commitment. And every fucking time I broke that commitment to myself, nobody knew that I was breaking the commitment, just me. It was giving myself permission to open up the possibilities of the things I did not want in my life. And so my pit was, I had gone out for a business dinner on a Monday night, and we were celebrating, like we just, like, everything was working, and we were out with these guys, and they showed us this kind of fund that we had built up on a back end as far as a residual business for one of our companies was concerned. And we ended up fucking hanging out, partying, having a good time. And I woke up the next day, and I still had like that, like, residual buzz going on, and my wife had a charity event that night. She was part of the children's hospital, and it was like her first event. And I didn't even remember. Like, I was kind of so caught up in my own shit and in my own head that I wasn't present enough to know that this event was happening. And I texted my buddy of mine. I said, I need a cocktail. You want to meet for breakfast and have some Bloody Marys? And he's like, yeah. So we went. Some other friends came, and next thing you know, one cocktail turned into 2, turned into 10, and full fucking blackout. Just full blackout. Meanwhile, like, I'm supposed to be home at a certain time to relieve my wife so she can go be with the kids. Or no, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to be at home to be with the kids so she can go to this charity event. She's calling me. I'm not answering my phone. Nothing. I wake up. Or not wake up, but I come to, and I'm in a fucking shitty ass hotel by myself. And I'm doing drugs by myself. My wife has no idea where I'm at. It was a fucking spot that I never ever thought I would go back to, ever. Like, you could have told me, at the end of Warrior Week 22, like, you're going to go to this spot someday. And it was like, Jesus telling, Peter that he was going to turn on him. I'd be like, fuck you. Like, that's not going to happen. That's not me. But because I allowed myself to break commitments and trust in myself, I perpetuated that self-worthiness, and then I just poured it all on at once. Like, fuck it, Nick, you're going to burn it all down to the ground. And it was fucking hard, man. It was hard. I mean, it was really hard. And I went to my wife and we talked about it. I was just like, one thing that I got from my dad growing up is like, you tell the truth, you won't get in trouble. And then warrior, you live by a code. Like, it means we tell the fucking truth. And so I just was honest with her. I told her exactly the events of the day, and I didn't want to hide anything. And so we went and did that checklist that you're talking about, therapy and this and that. And I felt some healing, but I didn't feel whole. And then you can imagine like how heavy after something like that, the unworthiness just pours onto you. And it affected me. I dove back into the work. I dove back into to the networks. I did syndicate, and I did all this stuff. But like, every time I'd see my fucking kids, I'm like, man, I don't know how I did that. I don't know like how that's possible. Instead of her just saying, you know what, it fucking happened. It's you, Nick. There's that piece inside of you that, if not harnessed, if not tempered, like, can be good or it can be evil.
So, if you're hearing this or watching this, and inside of this story, if you are just resonating with what Nick is talking about, what Nick is talking about is nothing but a feeling of being scared. Just scared of going back to the old patterns and routine that would not serve him, that for many years have kept him in fucking dark places and unsuccessful places where he felt just fucking unworthy. And so inside of that, this feeling of being scared was rising because the patterns and the behaviors were manifesting itself. And every time you would look at your kids, man, it's like, shit, I'm afraid that I can turn into that guy. And that is fucked up. And that fucking like transcended over your wife. And your wife thinking that, okay, Nick, you're drinking? Yeah, I'm drinking just a glass of wine. Oh, fuck. I just hope he's not going to turn into that guy. Right?
The gremlin.
So inside of this, if you're hearing this or watching this, resonating with this fucking story, and that you are scared as well, it's okay to give yourself permission to feel this fear. Now, most of you will block this out because you consider yourself some fucking alpha. Well, let me tell you about fucking Nick. Nick is a fucking aggressive alpha. He's here tonight talking about the parables of the pit, but he's an aggressive alpha. As a wrestler, as an entrepreneur, like, he'll rip your fucking head off. His brother's, it's in the military, and I won't tell what rank and so on, but pretty high up. So inside of this game, you're dealing with a guy that is not a fucking pussy. Nick is not a fucking pussy because he's scared. If you're hearing this and you're thinking to yourself, nah, I'm not scared. Well, fuck you, because you are a fucking pussy for overriding your feelings of actually being scared. Scared of the things that could actually affect your family. So if you go to a guy and you ask him, what is your biggest fear? You go to a guy and ask him, what is your biggest fear? And if he gives you some fucking bullshit answer, you tell him, fuck you, because you're a goddamn fucking liar. But if you come to a guy like Nick and you ask him, okay, Nick, what's your biggest fear?
Losing my family.
And what is that? That's your fucking why. That is your purpose in life. Ask the same question to me.
Sam, what's your biggest fear?
Losing my wife and my 2 kids. The biggest fucking fear in my life. And that becomes my why. It's very clear. Your biggest fear is your purpose and why. So if I ask you, what is your biggest fear? And you say, well, I'm afraid I'm gonna lose my job. Is that fucking your purpose and why in your life? Or that's another fucking bullshit answer? Or that's a pattern and behavior of yours not giving yourself permission. Not giving yourself permission to actually feel and answer the fucking question. Because you blocked it for so many fucking years. And Nick, you're indifferent. You fucking blocked it for years. And you come to 22. You leap towards Worry Week 40, where you actually access to the truth. And let's talk about the massive shift that took place ever since 40, right? We often talk about this thing called listening to the voice.
Yeah.
And the massive shift that took place, the massive difference this time around between 22 and 44 was this idea of listening to the voice and operating by the voice. Talk to us about that.
Well, so, we talked about the voice at 22 a bit, but I think not more importantly, but the problem was that at 22, I don't think that pit was ever really just fucking ripped wide open, right? And exposed. The possibility of losing my family was just this thing way out in the fucking horizon that as long as I could keep my eye on it, it would never happen. But when I went to the pit at 40, I saw it. Yeah. I saw them gone. The pit, I went so deep into the pit, I saw my kids standing around a fucking grave without a fucking father. My wife, who's the sweetest woman on planet Earth and believes in me, even though I've given her a million reasons not to, left alone. And I've taken the measures to ensure that they're okay financially. But as you and I were having a conversation earlier, the life you built is when you strip all the shit away. All the money, all the cars, all the businesses, all the accolades, the degrees, the pedigree, whatever you want to say. When you strip all that shit away, whatever's left, that's the life you've built. And that's your legacy. It's your family. It's your children. It's how many people are going to show up at your funeral and what they're going to say about you, not what you had. And so, I had to go deep into that pit and re-anchor myself to my why. And the closer I am to my why, the more clearly I can hear that voice.
I always remember it was during one of the Warrior X's that we were running, and one of the coaches that came in and assisted with that Warrior X, his name is Alex Willis. Great guy. Wisdom, man of God, just great fucking guy, right? And so we're up on the mountains, and it's day 2, and we're hiking, and we're going to this location where there's a conversation about purpose. And it was a conversation about business, but it was linked to purpose. Now, without your purpose, your profits don't mean shit. No. And inside of that, he dropped a story and a bomb that impacted all of us that day. Until this day, I tell the story whenever I go. Alex sit down and share with the group that, listen, it doesn't matter where I'm going to be, either under a bridge, living in a carton box with my family, or in a fucking castle. I'm going to be playing with them boys. I'm going to be loving my wife. I'm going to be fun. I'm going to be having an amazing time play with the fucking cockroaches in the carton box and the wood and the stone that is around that. Or whatever toys that I would have in the castle. It doesn't matter where I'm going to end up, in a castle or under a bridge. I am going to be a fucking father that loves his kids and a husband that loves his wife. Environment is not going to take that away from me. And that's exactly what you talked about. When you strip away everything, when you strip away everything that you've built around yourself, this world of fucking material, when you take this material world around you and you get rid of layers by layers, and I know detachment is not that easy. I get it. I'm not there. I'm not in a place where I can detach myself from a lot of shit. I'm hoping to get there. I'm working on myself to get there. Nick is working on that. But I am aware that if I detach myself from all that, at the end of the day, what is left is me and my family. And I am the glue that sticks everything together. And as fathers, we are the leaders of our family unit. Most people want to lead on the outside, without ever even giving a fucking try to lead from the inside, without even going to the battles that they need to go in order to lead inside of their household. The one place that they need to fucking lead, which they delegate the power to churches, delegate their power to educational system, delegate the power to coaches and sport coaches and mentors and anybody, fucking Tom, Dick, and Harry, 5 seconds away from your phone. Stop delegating your leadership of your family to others. You are 100% responsible to teach your kids about God. You are 100% responsible to teach your kids about life, about business, about the goddamn fucking truth, and stop fucking lying in your own household. Because when you do that, you are misleading them. Misleading them. And the cost of misleading is greater than you can even fucking imagine. It's not even a financial cost. It's an intangible cost that is out of your hand and mine. Stop misleading your family. Lead your family. Because if you're outside leading others and you're not leading your family, you're also misleading them. And there could be a great cause for misleading. Stop fucking lying. Stop. No white lies, no small lies, nothing. Nothing. No unintentional lies. No fucking labels. No lies. Just the truth to everyone at home. Kids, parents, doesn't matter. Break away through this fucking frame that society and life has put around you that, oh, they're kids, they should not hear that. Fuck that. Says who? Says who? You're the leader. You fucking decide. You decide what they hear and what they don't hear. You lead that family. But don't you lead on some fucking script that somebody else has written. Don't you lead based on a fucking checklist that somebody has given to you. Lead from your heart. Lead from this place that we call the voice. Hearing the voice. And asking for help. Asking for help. And allow that answer to download in your heart. And act upon it. I remember when I was 9. I remember I was 9. We were in Canada. And actually, no, that wasn't 9. I was 13. Yeah, 13 in Canada. And I was living in this, we were living in this apartment place next to school. And one night I came back from school. And it was around 5, 6, or 4, whatever it was. But it was dark and cold and snow everywhere. It was snowing. And my mom wasn't home that night. And I think she'd gone with my dad and my brother. My dad was working, actually. And my brother was, my mom was gone with my brother somewhere. I don't recall where. And she's giving me the keys of the house, right? The keys of the apartment so I can go in and just open and just eat something that she left for me and then wait for her. And she said that she's going to be back right around 9. As I walk in the street and as I got closer to my house, walking on the snow, and it was a beautiful snowy night, but at the same time, it was very cold. And I could still remember up to now the light shining on the flakes of the snow that have just put themselves on the ground nicely. And then remembering the tracks of the tires of the cars in the street that would take them and just put them apart. And then it would be covered again and then put them apart as I was walking in this long street. I would see this pattern happen. And then as I got into the apartment, I started looking for my keys. And I couldn't find my keys. And I remember going to this state of like panic or crying. At that time, it was a huge problem for me not being able to get inside of the apartment. And the fact that I lost the keys of the apartment, like I was just a fucking kid, man. I didn't know what the fuck I was up, right? It wasn't like, okay, right now, all right, I'll just, sit down outside and ask for the neighbors or whatever. It was cold. It was dark. I wasn't used to my mom not being home, and I was supposed to be alone. And so I started panicking, and something led me back. Something told me, go back and look for the keys. Go back on your track. Follow your track on the snow, on the same street that you came, this long street. and go look for the keys. So I walk back on the trace of my footprint as they were being covered by the snow. But I could still see them, and I was going back and back and back. And I remember I walked at least maybe half a mile or so. And as I was walking, I was just talking to God. And I would say, God, please help me. Please help me find the keys. Please help me find the keys. Please help. And with tears in my eyes, please help me find the keys. And nothing was happening. And as I walked and I walked, almost at the end of that street, before it was turning into another one, I kept looking on the floor, kept looking for my keys. And I asked God one thing. I said, please, God, I want to know your presence. I want to know that you can hear me. If you can hear me, please find the keys for me. Let me find my keys. And I'm not fucking lying to you, bro. And I'm not making this fucking story up for this fucking podcast or anybody else that wants to fucking listen. I don't give a fuck. This is the first time that I felt the presence of God. As I stepped in, on my next step, I felt the fucking keys underneath my shoes. So I specifically remember the color of the fucking keys. Silver and bronze. I picked them up with this joy and happiness. I picked them up in my hand, and it was the confirmation to me personally that God is listening to me. And I was 12 or 13. And everything, I believe, has shifted for me ever since that moment. I believe, because I couldn't think that way then. Now I look back and I believe everything has shifted for me. And I walked back home with joy, and I never told the story to anyone, man.
Really? I mean, I'm listening to this and I got goosebumps because I'm like painting the actual analogy of like you're locked outside a door that you know you're supposed to be in, and by listening to your voice, and you actually had to go backwards at times, you find the fucking keys to unlock and let you out of the cold, let you out of the dark, let you out of the snow.
It's a crazy fucking story.
The voice provided, like, it's like gives me goosebumps.
I haven't told this story up to this point. And this just came into me like about the conversation of the voice, and I just remember the story. As if God wanted me to tell this story so that I can actually say what we're going to say, which is this conversation about the voice. And it was like the introduction to this. And we can go to your story and hear how you trusted the voice. But I look back at this, and the way you painted this, it's like true. I was let out of the fucking pit that night. That was my pit that night for a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
Tears in my eyes, not knowing the unknown, dark and cold, and all I wanted was a warm soup inside of my own apartment. So talk to me, Nick, about you finding yourself in the dark and in the cold as you shared, but then finding the keys, right? Finding the keys of the apartment, going in, sitting in, having a warm soup, and today continues to listen to that voice.
Yeah, and I what I've found is that most of my anxiety, most of my depression, if you want to call it that, and is when I'm out of alignment or I'm not listening to the voice. As you know, I'm in the process of becoming a certified trainer here at Warrior, and like I know what I need to be doing, and I know what I've been called to do. And the closer I get to that path and the closer I get to completion, and the more I'm actually doing what I know I've been called to, what the voice has told me to do, like I have zero anxiety. Like this is a prime example. Sitting here right now, like I did not enjoy telling that story.
Yeah.
But the voice said, fucking let it go.
Yeah.
And I feel liberated. As scary as this is out in the public.
No, dude, this goes to fucking million of men.
Yes, this is out in the public.
Million of men. Some will fucking judge.
Of course.
And some will heal.
Yeah. And some of those men could be my family. But the voice, like the whole drive up here, I'm like, what am I going to share?
Sure.
And I just went quiet. I turned the radio off and I said, you're gonna share whatever comes to you.
Yes.
Because there's somebody out there that needs to hear it, and maybe that person is you. And maybe that person is that this is still you just letting that shit go and stepping into becoming the man that you know you need to become.
Part of hearing your own story is therapy.
Yes.
You hear your own story so you can actually give yourself permission to be the narrative of the new story.
Right.
And so tonight you're going to be a changed man driving back because you just listened to your own story and you're going to choose a better narrative than what you had today.
Yeah.
Same thing for me. Like going back to the story of the keys, like I have a big fucking question asking myself, like, how the fuck is it possible that I haven't even told this story? In all these fucking Warrior Weeks and all
one of the greatest orators in the business, and you haven't told that story.
Thousands of men coming in and all the live training every week and never at Warrior Cons with fucking 750 guys in the room, never told this story.
Wow.
And I'm recognizing that we all have stories. And our stories can either empower us based on the truth. Our stories are fact, Nick. They're facts. They took place.
Right.
Our interpretation of the stories is the truth. And to me tonight, that was the truth. The truth was that, like, God manifested himself to me, to this little kid, in whatever ways. Maybe it was just by helping me find the keys. One thing I'm going to fucking refuse to believe is that's a big fucking coincidence. My answer to that is fuck you. Like a deep fucking fuck you. So if you're listening there and you're saying, hey, man, that could have been a fucking big coincidence, I would tell you based on fucking what? What the fuck do you know about coincidence? You're going to talk to me about some odds. You're going to talk to me about some possibilities based on some math and some science. And you can shove that up your fucking ass because what I felt was true. And it doesn't matter what you fucking interpret out of it or what your opinion is about that. The fact that happened, truth came out of it from me. And truth came out of it fucking 40 years later as I'm sitting here telling the story. Back then, it was just a story that inspired me. The fact that I just remember that today by itself is transcending to me.
Absolutely.
So, listening to the voice, coming back to this, talk to me about how you operate now today by listening to the voice.
So, I mean, given the tools and everything that we have available to us inside of Warrior, you know, I almost feel like we have an unfair advantage. I remember Garrett one time said he was walking around and he felt like he had this secret that nobody else knew. And I kind of feel the same way. You know, every morning, you know, when I dive in and I do what we here call a stack, and it's basically just kind of like tapping in and channeling into that voice and finding the fruit in whatever's happening in my own life. And like that voice has guided me to radically shift like things in my business, opened up radical conversations with me and my wife, things I used to tiptoe around, like we just hit head on. And it's actually given her permission to do the same with me. Like she will kick my ass sometimes.
Good.
And I'll show you the text messages to prove it. Like when I'm going off course, she now knows that like she can speak to me and not have fear of repercussion, you know? And that's huge for us,
sure.
You know, because I hadn't always in the past created a safe environment for her to be heard. Because why? Because I couldn't fucking hear myself. And so every day I get kind of daily liberation from whatever it is that's holding me back. And then I channel in and I listen to the voice, and then there's always kind of just one clear, concise thing to do. And it's not always monumental. It's not always as, you know, amazing as finding, you know, your keys in the snow and you know, going in and having some warm soup. Sometimes it's just like getting this fucking gnat that's been bugging you out of your life.
Yeah.
And creating space for something else to come in.
I mean, I take a look at my life and where I'm today, and every single steps. We moved a couple of times, man. We moved from my hometown to Texas, and then from Texas to California. And every time we moved, we left friends and family behind. And inside of that, every time we fucking moved, we operated with new rules on that location. I mean, country to country, Canada to US was a big fucking deal.
Right.
Like, we're not used to fucking healthcare and, like, dude, like, you go to the hospital, you give the card, and you get treated. Now, inside of that, it's like, oh, you got to get insurance, you got to be approved, you got all kind of shit. Like, I'm just giving you a fucking example, right? Yeah. About the complexity. But every single move that I made and every single decisions that actually changed my life was always always enhanced, presented, or somehow driven by my wife's vision on expansion, on growth, and the possibilities. And I know your wife does the same thing too. I mean, I know you've personally, and I know Nicole, and she's the angel, the guardian angel between, like, for you and the kids, and the guidance, overall guide. You're the leader, but she's the overall guidance.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because, I don't often want to listen to her, but I do listen to her.
Yeah.
Because I have a tremendous amount of respect. And the reason why I don't want to listen to her is because, I know she's already right. But somehow the alpha or something inside of us just goes, nah, let's go test this shit.
That's true.
And then we come back and we're like, shit. I mean, her intuition on people, on things and places and everything, it's amazing. And the thing that I love the most about my wife is that she sees it in me before I see it in me. And she will not let me stop short of my own potential. And it's a selfless thing, because she will give up. I mean, she's sacrificing right now for me to be here.
It's true.
And because she knows how passionate I am about this stuff. And she knows that we're on a path and this is part of the path. And so it's amazing. And I think every time I show up for her, it gives her permission to show up for herself. And this year's been a huge growth year for us. Huge.
So, I see our wives as the consigliere in the Italian mob,
that's
right?
That's actually a great fucking analogy.
They are the consigliere, right? Sometimes we fucking listen to them and shit happens the right way. And often we're like, no, we're in power. We'll make the shots. We'll make the decision. We're like, okay, fuck. I should have listened.
Right.
So there's deep amount of love and appreciation inside of that. What would you say, man, to thousands of entrepreneurs that are listening to this podcast right now, or watching this on YouTube or anywhere? But what would you say to thousands of entrepreneurs that are wearing this fucking mask as if everything is great and they're not doing some of the shit that you actually did, that I did? Like everything else, like everything is fucking covered. Like there is no drugs, there is no drinking, there's no porn, there is no prostitution, there is no other woman, there is no. There is only this image of the entrepreneur. Like, what would you have to say to that, bro?
I would tell them there's something. There's fucking something, and in your heart of hearts, what that something is. You know that what that thing is that you need to let go, that thing that you need to face, and that you need to surrender. Like whether it's here in Warrior, the beauty about Warrior is this is not about come to Warrior. This is about come to reckoning with yourself. Liberate yourself. Because you liberate yourself first, you're going to liberate and lead your family. And so for all those entrepreneurs and some hopefully that I know that are listening to this, you can do it in your own way. You don't have to come onto a podcast that's going to be broadcast around the world and dump your shit. This is taking a lot of training and practice to get up the nerve to do this. You can start by just telling the fucking truth to yourself. Grab a pen and paper and write down what it is that you're lying about. Write down what it is that you're holding on to. Write down what it is that's holding you back, because there is something.
So that's a great fucking suggestion. If you're watching or listening to this, you got two fucking assignments. First assignment is ask yourself, what is your biggest fear? And the answer of that should tell you what your why and purpose is in your life. Period. So if you come up with some fucking bullshit answer, then you know that it's bullshit. And if you try to just adopt the answer that me and Nick give right out of the gate, give it some fucking effort. Second thing that you're going to do is the following. That you're going to ask yourself, what is the biggest lie you are telling yourself right now? What is the biggest lie you are telling yourself right now? And as Nick suggested it, write it down and read that shit to yourself. This doesn't have to be public. You don't have to go live on Facebook or on Instagram. You don't need to fucking write it and show it to your wife, anybody else. As you're listening to this podcast or you're watching this, you're perhaps maybe in your car driving or wearing your Walkman working out or whatever the fuck you are, do this. Do this for one reason, and that is for an awakening inside of you. Write down the biggest lie you are telling yourself today. And then read that. Read that to yourself. First, read it, and then read it out loud and out loud and out loud. And hear it. Just don't fucking read it, but hear it. Hear the lie. And allow the feelings to rise and feel like, what are you feeling about this lie? It's not easy. But once you do that, there's a shift that begins in terms of your perspective. Now, a lot of you are very good at feeling this in the garage or in the car, agreeing with what I'm saying here and what Nick is saying there, and then like package it in the glove component and just go inside of the house and go back to your life and just forget about this shit until something happens in your life, like a tragedy or some shit goes wrong. Something fucking happens in your life and you come back and you open the glove component and you look at the biggest lie you were telling yourself and you ask yourself, what if? What if I would stop fucking lying today? What if I would have stopped lying then? How life could have been. Nick, the biggest lie you were telling yourself, what was it?
The biggest lie that I was telling myself was that I was okay and that like I had it all figured out and I was the fucking man because I was providing, jobs and money for my family and that's what was important. And like it's so clear now, like strip away everything that you have. And that's the life you've created. That's it.
And if you're not the glue between what is left, and if you're not the glue to stick that unit together, which should be your family, and then everything else around it, you need to get sticky. You need to become the fucking glue. You need to understand and master the art of transitioning between the world of business and production and your line of work, and transitioning into your lifestyle as a leader at home, as a father and a husband. When you come home at 5, 6 p.m., whatever that time is, 2 p.m., whatever that time is for you, that you transition to this father and husband that is serving and only serving your family. These are the transition period that actually build memories and actually fulfilled the childhoods of the kids. Me and Nick, we were growing up in a generation, and maybe yourself as well, where there was no fucking blueprint for our dads to do this. And so inside of that, we are wounded kids, wounded child. There's a child within that is wounded, that didn't get love, maybe didn't get attention, maybe was lied to, maybe didn't get permission to do. There is a part of us that is not fulfilled. There's part of you that is not fulfilled. And reparenting begins by filling that part up and allowing the adult version of that to feel fulfilled and accept that. That's leading yourself. Because if you can't lead yourself, how the fuck are you going to lead your wife and your kids? Think about this. If you cannot lead yourself, if you cannot fulfill the wounded child within by simply knowing and accepting and reparenting yourself, how the fuck are you going to parent your kids? It's a big fucking question. You can read all the books of the world. You can listen to everybody else telling you how you should raise your kids. And these are the best practices, and this is what society is expecting. Among all this, you're ignoring the one place that you should be listening to, and that is in your heart. The problem is most of you guys talk too fucking much, and you never allow the voice to talk to you. The voice speaks inside of your heart. And if you choose to go to that place and hear what it tells you, you get all your guidance and leadership. That's what Nick did. And that's what Nick is doing today. That's what I'm doing today. My biggest lie I was telling myself was that I know what the fuck am I doing. That my purpose was very clear in life. I had a very clear purpose. That was my biggest fucking lie I was telling myself. All that changed when my perspective on life changed. Being away 250 days out of 356 in the oil and gas industry wasn't fucking serving my family. But I had that as my purpose because I was building a business and I was rising. I was becoming an authority in that industry. My perspective changed when my reality changed. The facts didn't change. The facts remained the same. But I look at the fact and I interpreted the truth differently from them. I do that differently today. Today, my family comes first. Nothing else. And I mean that. Nothing else. Strip away everything. Strip away this fucking t-shirt. Strip away everything. Everything. I got my family. And I am the glue to the unit of my family. Nick got his family. And he's the glue. So Nick and I could be living on the fucking bridge in a carton box. And you bet your ass we're going to play with them boys and girls and we're going to have fun. And we're going to love on our wives. And we're going to create an environment that creates happiness. Because at the end of the day, kids don't need fuck all. All kids want is happy parents. That's all kids want. They don't want fucking toys. They don't want you to get on vacation. They don't want nothing. They just want happy parents. Happy parents, period. So when you're not fulfilled, you're not really happy. But you pretend to be happy, and that makes you a goddamn fucking liar. Nick, we're running to the end of the show. Final words, brother, for the entrepreneurs or anybody listening to this. Like, just the final word of, hey, man, you drop some bombs here. You drop your pain. You relive your pain. Like, what's your heart telling you?
My heart's telling me something that, like, I ask myself on a daily basis is, am I the man or the adult that I want my child to become? Because that's ultimately what's going to happen. You're just talking about that, you know. They want happy parents. They want fulfilled parents. And so being present over being perfect will fucking win every goddamn day. So you drop your facade of perfection, lean in and be present, and be the adult that you want your children to become.
Yeah, you better write that shit down. Or remember this line. Being present overrides being perfect every single fucking time.
But we put on this fucking Instagram facade of perfection, and I'm guilty of it too. But, like, drop that perfection and just be fucking present.
And that's true. There's this constant desire to be perfect. If it's not in fashion or if it's not in owning a car or this, there's always a venue and area that invites us to be perfect in. And so you're right. It's not something that's going to go away, but just to be aware of this simple formula, which is presence overrides perfection any given fucking time. So be present. And the place you can be present is at home with your kids.
Right.
That's a simple fucking exercise.
Right.
That's an exercise that you can do today. If you're pulling your car into your garage right now as you're done listening to this podcast and you've arrived at home, or maybe you're already at home and you're sitting inside of your car and listening to the final words of this podcast, go inside of your household and be present. Just do that. Fuck all the other assignments, everything that you heard here. Forget all that. Just be present. Just be present for the next 4 hours, for the next 3 hours. Put away your goddamn fucking phone away. Actually dump it in your car and lock it in and just go home. Just go home. Come pick it up later at 11 or whatever, or tomorrow morning. But just go home and be present. No TV, nothing. Just be with your family. Practice the art of transition tonight. And so I want to thank you all for listening to this show and spending an hour of your time just to hear the stories of the pit, the parables from the pit, the truth that comes through our guest, Nick. I want to thank you for being here, and as well as the stories of men that we told here, including myself. I encourage you to check out worryweeknow.com for all the episodes of the podcast, and as well as the transcripts and all the details, pictures that we would put that are relevant. I don't have the picture of the keys. I would have fucking loved to have that.
That would have been great. You should have kept. I would have framed those things.
Fuck that. I'm gonna go pick a similar picture of a key, and I'm gonna keep telling that story. So I want to thank you guys also for the time and space that you created for me to share some of my truth and my discoveries during these podcasts. Once again, you can download the podcast on iTunes, or you can subscribe to it, and also at worryweeknow.com. Gentlemen, until next time, take care.